described here, the desire to enjoy royal happiness. We're intent on killing our own kinsman. Of course, it's happened many places, even in recent times. Not long ago, I think it was in Nepal, there was a murder there, and one person killed all the other members in the royal family. And so this kind of thing goes on. But certainly it's a very strange, greatly sinful act, very sinful thing to kill people. So this way, Arjuna is describing like this, right? It's Arjuna speaking now? Yeah?
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah. So he doesn't want to be like that. Arjuna's a devotee. He doesn't have that desire for royal happiness. He's not so attached to it. And he certainly hesitates to the thought of killing our own kinsman. It's really not proper. But of course he has to do it because he's a Kshatriya and he's challenged in the battle. Go ahead.
Verse 45. Yadi mam apratikaram ashastram shastrapanaya dhritarashtarane hanyus tanme kshemataram bhavet. Translation?
Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. Perfect. It is the custom, according to Shastriya fighting principles, that an unarmed and unwilling foe should not be attacked. Arjuna, however, decided that even if attacked by the enemy in such an awkward position, he would not fight. He did not consider how much the other party was bent upon fighting. All these symptoms are due to soft-heartedness resulting from his being a great devotee of the Lord.
Yes, because he's a great devotee. So he's thinking like that. The devotee, he's let them kill me. He said, I'm not going to take a weapon and I'm not going to fight back. They can do what they want. This the nature of the devotee. He's like this. But this mood is not pleasing to Krishna. We will hear how Krishna doesn't like this. He's going to defeat all of these arguments. So Arjuna is thinking, oh, can you hear me all right?
Yes, Guru Maharaj, we can hear.
Okay.
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Okay, so Arjuna, we're hearing Arjuna's reasons for not fighting. First of all, out of compassion. He's a very compassionate person. He cares about others. He's not selfish. He's not just thinking about his own self, but he really cares. He's really compassionate and considerate about others. That's his first reason. And he thinks if I fight, won't be good. I should be compassionate. Go ahead.
Sanjaya uvacha evam ukvachuna shanke rato pasya upavishat vishrajya shasharam chapam toka samviknya manasaha. Translation? Yeah, please someone read the translation. Garima Mataji, please.
Sure, I'll read it. Translation, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sanjaya said, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief.
Purport.
While observing the situation of his enemy, Arjuna stood up on the chariot, but he was so affected with lamentation that he sat down again, setting aside his bow and arrows. Such a kind and soft-hearted person in the devotional service of the Lord is fit to receive self-knowledge.
All right. So Arjuna had actually vowed he would never put down his bow Gandiva. Remember, he has a very special bow, the Gandiva bow. I think it was given to him by Lord Shiva, was it?
Yes,
And
Guru
it's a very
Maharaj.
special bow.
No. Lord Shiva gave him Pashupatrastra.
Or gave him Pashupat Astra. Who gave him
Yes.
Gandiva bow?
I think it was from, I'm forgetting his name, from some Gandhar. Or no, I think Lord Indra or some Gandhar.
Agni Maharaj.
Agni Maharaj, okay.
Well, I know Agni gave the chariot. The chariot was given by Agni.
But
He
I
has an
recently,
indestructible chariot.
I recently heard it in some lecture that chariot was given by some Gandharvas whom he defeated during one fight while they were on exile.
Oh, seems to be some different versions then. Different conflicting versions. See, we often get this. Anyway, not so important. The point is, you know, he did have a very special bow, and, you know, he didn't like to put down the bow. But here in this situation, he's so much afflicted by lamentation. He's so worried about the others. He's so soft-hearted. So his reasons for not fighting, not only was he worried about, you know, being compassionate, it's not only compassion, but he was also worried about the sinful reactions which would come on them for this. That he considered the fighting against their relatives, that this is sinful. So sinful reactions, and then also we heard he was worried he would not be able to enjoy the kingdom. That's very important, you know, that you're fighting for something, you have to really want it. You have to really want it badly, so much so that you're ready to fight for it. But Arjuna was thinking, I want to enjoy it. I want to enjoy the kingdom. So in that kind of mode, Arjuna is not really ready to fight. So Krishna has to really incite him into battle. Krishna has to really break through all of these arguments and defeat them all and encourage Arjuna to go into battle and fight. And so this is Bhagavad Gita. You know, Bhagavad Gita is all about surrendering to Krishna. You see, Arjuna didn't want to fight, but Krishna wanted him to do it. We have to understand the desire of the Lord over everything. It's not just what we want, but it's what Krishna wants. What does the Lord want us to do? We're his instruments, we're his servants. He's the master. So Bhagavad Gita is to bring us to that consciousness, to surrender to Krishna. Okay, so this is the end of the first chapter, which is just simply the introduction to the battle scene here, hearing about Arjuna not wishing to fight. Okay, we'll go into the second chapter.
Sanjaya uvacha tam tata kripaya vishtam ashru purna kulekshanam vishidantam idam vakyam uchava madhusudana. Translation.
Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears. Madhusudana, Krishna spoke the following words. Puppet, material compassion, lamentation, and tears are all signs of ignorance of the real
Yes,
self.
purport.
Material compassion, lamentation, and tears are all signs of ignorance of the real self. Compassion for the eternal soul is self-realization. The word Madhusudana is significant in this verse. Lord Krishna killed the demon Madhu, and now Arjuna wanted Krishna to kill the demon of misunderstanding that had overtaken him in the discharge of his duty. No one knows where compassion should be applied. Compassion for the dress of a drowning man is senseless. A man fallen in the ocean of Nescience cannot be saved simply by rescuing his outward dress, the gross material body. One who does not know this and laments for the outward dress is called a sutra, or one who laments unnecessarily. Arjuna was a Sakshatriya, and thus conduct was not expected from him. Lord Krishna, however, can dissipate the lamentation of the ignorant man, and for this purpose, the Bhagavad Gita was sung by him. This chapter instructs us in self-realization by an analytical study of the material body and the spiritual soul, as explained by the Supreme Authority, Lord Sri Krishna. This realization is possible when one works without attachment to fruitive result and is situated in the fixed conception of the real self.
Right. So Sanjay is speaking. Sanjay, of course, he's talking to Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra is in the palace. Dhritarashtra is blind, and he's concerned about his 100 sons, headed by Duryodhana, who are there at Kurukshetra. Dhritarashtra is at Hastinapur in the palace there. Sanjay is his secretary, and Sanjay, by the grace of Vyas, can describe everything to him. So Sanjay is describing, he mentions Lord Krishna as Madhusudan, excuse me, and Madhusudan, and Madhu is a demon. So Krishna kills the demons, and the doubts are like demons. So this is Krishna's job. He has to kill Arjuna's doubts. Arjuna is doubting that it's right to fight, or he's thinking it's not good to fight. But Krishna has to convince him that actually it's good for him. It's actually part of his duty. So Prabhupada talks about compassion. And generally we think of compassion as being a saintly quality, but we have to see where the compassion is applied. And Prabhupada gives the example that if a man is drowning and you simply save his jacket or his coat, that's useless. So the material body is like the covering of the soul. If we simply show our compassion on the body, it's no good. It's not going to help anybody. We have to know how to show compassion. And real compassion is for the soul, to help to elevate the soul out of ignorance. So Srila Prabhupada talks about how the lower class people, the Sudra, will lament unnecessarily about material things. So the material body is like that. It is not really something which we want to lament about, because the nature of the material body is temporary and miserable. It's going to bring us trouble. So this attachment for the body is a problem, and Lord Krishna is going to help us to overcome this in the beginning of his teachings here. Lord Krishna has not yet begun teaching. We're only hearing from Arjuna. So in a few verses, it will take a little longer before we hear Lord Krishna begin to instruct Arjuna. Any questions so far? Now, this chapter is called Contents of the Gita Summarized. we're going to hear in this chapter, we'll hear something about the difference to work. And there will be only a little tiny fraction about bhakti yoga in this second chapter. But Lord Krishna has not yet begun his teaching. We will hear later on how Arjuna surrenders to Krishna and he asks Lord Krishna to guide him. Okay, go ahead.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha Kutasva Kasmalam Idam Vishame Samupastitam Anarya Justam Asvatyam Akirtikaram Arjuna. Translation.
The Supreme Personality, yes. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all benefiting a man who knows the value of life. They led not to higher planets but to infamy." Purport. Krishna and the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Very interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Guru Maharaj. Perfect. So Krishna and Supreme Personality of Godhead are identical. Therefore, Lord Krishna is referred to as Bhagavan throughout the Gita. Bhagavan is the ultimate in the absolute truth. The absolute truth is realized in three phases of understanding, namely Brahman, or the impersonal, all-pervasive spirit, Paramatma, or the localized aspect of the Supreme within the heart of all the living entities, and Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.11, this conception of the absolute truth is explained thus. Shall I continue?
Yeah. Go ahead.
The absolute truth is realized in three phases of understanding by the knower of the absolute truth, and all of them are identical. Such phases of absolute truth are expressed as Brahma, Paramatma, and Bhagavan.
Okay, let's talk about this first before you read more.
Okay.
So Srila Prabhupada is explaining to us about what is the absolute truth. You should understand the concept of the absolute truth is higher than God, because we often find there are many gods. If you simply speak about God, you know, we have the God of wind, they have the God of rain, the God of fire. You know, which God do you mean? So the concept of the absolute truth is above that of the concept of God. So we want to understand the absolute truth. And the absolute truth is described in this way, quoting from the scriptures, describing that the absolute truth has three features or three expressions. There is the Brahman, which is like the energy or the light. The Brahman. Our soul is actually Brahman. It's the divine energy. It's eternal, all-pervading. So, but it's impersonal. There's no individuality there. There's no variety there. It's just simply the oneness of that all-pervading light. So some people recognize God in that way, as the Brahman. And other people, they recognize God as the Paramatma, which is the form of the Lord in the heart. Not only in the heart of all living entities, but also even within the atom, there is Paramatma. So this is another aspect of the Lord. But then there's a third aspect, which is called Bhagavan, which means the personality. Now, for example, Jnana yogis, they will meditate on the Brahman, whereas the Ashtanga yogis and the Hatha yogis, they meditate on the Paramatma. But the Bhakti yogis, they meditate, their concentration is on Bhagavan. There's different realizations also. With Brahman realization, then we simply realize only the eternal aspect of God. We simply see everything as eternal. And we think of ourselves also as being a part of that Brahman, like a spark coming from the fire. That, you know, we have heat and light, like the Brahman. So the Brahman is eternal, and the Paramatma is more the knowledge aspect of God. Along with the eternal feature, there's also the knowledge. So Brahman is Sat, and Paramatma is Chit. So you have Sat and Chit both there in Paramatma. But with the Bhagavan feature, you have Sat and Chit and Anand. That all three features are there with Bhagavan. These three realizations are sometimes compared to, well, Brahman. The Brahman will be like the sunlight, the Paramatma will be like the sun planet, and Bhagavan will be like the sun god. So sometimes we can see the sunlight and we simply realize the sun as the sunlight, the energy. But the sunlight has a source. It comes from the sun planet. So further realization of the sun is the sun.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Okay, I will just continue reading until Guru Maharaj joins us. This three, okay, Nitya, do you want to read this new Nitya from Geneva?
Sure, okay, I can read this.
Yeah,
These three
Yes.
divine aspects can be explained by the example of the sun, which also has three different aspects, namely the sunshine, the sun's surface, and the sun planet itself. One who studies the sunshine only is the preliminary student. One who understands the sun's surface is further advanced, and one who can enter into the sun planet is the highest. Ordinary students who are satisfied by simply understanding the sunshine, its universal pervasiveness, and the glaring effulgence of its impersonal nature may be compared to those who can realize only the Brahman feature of the absolute truth. The student who has advanced still further can know the sun disk, which is compared to knowledge of the Paramatma feature of the absolute truth. And the student who can enter into the heart of the sun planet is compared to those who realize the personal features of the supreme absolute truth. Therefore, the bhaktas or the transcendentalists who have realized the Bhagavan feature of the absolute truth are the topmost transcendentalists, although all students who are engaged in the study of the absolute truth are engaged in the same subject matter. The sunshine, the sun disk, and the inner affairs of the sun planet cannot be separated from one another, and yet the students of the three different phases are not in the same category. Should I continue?
Yes, Yes, Nitya.
Okay. The Sanskrit word Bhagwan is explained by the great authority Parashara Muni, the father of Vyasadeva. The Supreme Personality who possesses all riches, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation is called Bhagavan. There are many persons who are very rich, very powerful, very beautiful, very famous, very learned, and very much detached. But no one can claim that he possesses all riches, all strength, etc. entirely. Only Krishna can claim this because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No living entity, including Brahma, Lord Shiva, or Narayana, can possess opulence as fully as Krishna. Therefore, it is concluded in the Brahma Samhita by Lord Brahma himself that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one is equal to or above him. He is the primeval Lord or Bhagavan, known as Govinda, and he is the supreme cause of all causes.
Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Please continue, Mataji.
There are many personalities possessing the qualities of Bhagavan, but Krishna is the supreme because none can excel him. He is the supreme person, and his body is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. He is the primeval Lord Govinda and the cause of all causes. Brahma Samhita 5.1. In the Bhagavatam also, there's a list of many incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Krishna is described as the original personality of Godhead, from whom many, many incarnations and personalities of Godhead expand.
Ete Chamsa Kalapunsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridyayanti Yuge Yuge.
All the lists of the incarnations of Godhead submitted herewith are either plenary expansions or parts of the plenary expansions of the Supreme Godhead. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Bhagavatam 1.3.28. Therefore, Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, and the impersonal Brahman. In the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjuna's lamentation for his kinsman is certainly unbecoming, and therefore Krishna expressed his surprise with the word kuta, where from. Such impurities were never expected from a person belonging to the civilized class of men, known as Aryans. The word Aryan is applicable to persons who know the value of life and have a civilization based on spiritual realization. Persons who are led by the material conception of life do not know the aim of life is realization of the absolute truth. Vishnu or Bhagavan, and they are captivated by the external features of the material world, and therefore they do not know what liberation is. Persons who have no knowledge of liberation from material bondage are called non-Aryans. Although Arjuna was a Kshatriya, he was deviating from his prescribed duties by declining to fight. This act of cowardice is described as befitting the non-Aryans. Such deviation from duty does not help one in the progress of spiritual life, nor does it even give one the opportunity to become famous in the world. Lord Krishna did not approve of the so-called compassion of Arjuna for his kinsman. That's the end.
Thank you, Mataji. I think Guru Maharaj has joined now.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Guru
Hare
Maharaj?
Krishna. Yes. Okay, so, you know, we often think, you know, fighting is wrong. We have to understand that when Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to fight in this battle, that it's meant to be fought in a different manner to the type of thing, the situation where wars are fought today. When they fight wars today, you know, there's so much cruelty and injustice, they fly airplanes over a city and they will bomb all the homes of the women, homes full of women and children. They'll do things like that. But this war, Battle of Kurukshetra, it's a Dharma Yudh. They're Kshatriyas. And for Kshatriyas, it's a very glorious situation for them to go into battle and to be able to fight. And to die on the battlefield is a great honor for them. So because
Hare
this...
Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, can you hear me okay?
Hare Krishna.
Guru Maharaj, we are able to hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you having anybody has any questions or any doubts?
Guru Maharaj, you were discussing about the three phases of the absolute truth, Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan.
Yes.
So the Jnanis and the Ashtanga Yogis, you are saying they can realize the Paramatma. Realizing what does it actually mean by realizing the Paramatma? Does they know already that Krishna is Paramatma, or how is it different from realizing the Bhagavan stage, Guru Maharaj? That difference I am not able to understand between the second stage and the third stage.
Yes, well, generally the Jnanis realize the Brahman. The Jnanis and the Vedantists, these kind of people, their attention is more on the Brahman. You know, like Ramakrishna Mission, people like that, they will speak more about the Brahman. And there's Upanishads also which glorify the Brahman. Mundaka Upanishad. Mundaka Upanishad speaks about the Brahman. There's only 11 verses. It's a very small Upanishad. But, you know, the Vedantist people, the impersonalists, the Mayavadis, they like the Brahman. They like to hear about the Brahman because they consider ultimately there's only oneness. Their concept is all the gods are one and the goal is to merge. So that's the Advaita school. But there's also the Vaishnava philosophy that there's not simply one, but there's two. There's the soul and there's also the super soul. So the yogis who meditate on the super soul, there are different kinds of yogis. Some yogis, they may think that they are the super soul. Their meditation, they meditate on the super soul and they think I am the super soul. And other yogis, they meditate on the super soul and they realize themselves to be the servant of the super soul. And then they will take up devotional service. So they can go on from the meditation on the super soul, they can go on to take up bhakti yoga. This is the progression in the yoga system, the yoga ladder, that you can go on from meditating on the super soul and then realizing this, that we're the servant of the super soul, then we will take up the position of being the servant of the Lord in the heart. So there's two kinds of realizations for the yogis. One is to be, and often the yogis, they have also material desires. They want to get yoga siddhis, and they're meditating on the super soul, and their aim is to achieve the astasiddhis, you know, the 8 yoga perfections, becoming lighter than the lightest and heavier than the heaviest, and to have prapti siddhi, to be able to acquire things from very far away, and to go against all the laws of nature. So these kinds of things. So some people, they think of meditation on the super soul. They think the goal of the yoga meditation is to get these yoga powers. But other people contemplate that these yoga siddhis have already been achieved by modern science. By the powers of modern science, you can already fly in the air, and you can also go through the water, and you can do so many different things through modern science. So there's nothing really to be gained by yoga powers. If you want to walk on water, you may have to spend a very long time practicing yoga to get the power to be able to walk over water. But you can also pay a small amount of money and go on a boat and cross the water. So what is the value of that kind of power? And in the past, there are people who have these kind of powers, yoga powers, that they can pick up things by mantra and by meditation. They can do these kind of things. But that's not the ultimate goal.
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
So even the yogis are also not peaceful, that they have some material desires. They want to get something, they're looking to get some power. The jnani, he's also not peaceful, he wants to become one with the universe. So the bhukti, mukti, siddhikami, sakale ashanta. Krishna bhakti niskam, sayesh ashanta. That if one has these material desires, he won't be peaceful. But if one simply wants devotional service, then he can be peaceful. He can be in a good state of mind. So this is the idea, that don't be attracted by all these other things. Yoga powers, to have some magic power, to be able to produce gold. Oh, you will attract a lot of people, but you'll attract a lot of people who are greedy for gold. Or if you heal the sick, maybe you have magic powers, you can heal sick people. You'll attract a lot of sick people. That's not really what you want. You don't want to just attract people looking for gold or people who are sick looking to get cured. We want to give the real truth, knowledge about the truth of life, to understand who I am, why I'm here, and to understand the nature of the Supreme Lord, the absolute truth, Vishnu or Bhagavan. That's more important.
So
Okay.
Guru Maharaj, what
Yeah.
happens to a yogi who thinks that he himself is the super soul? He is meditating on the super soul and he thinks that he is the super soul. So what will happen? He won't come to bhakti, and then what will happen to him, Guru Maharaj?
Well, he may merge with the Brahman. He may enter into the oneness of the Brahman.
Okay, okay. Yeah, thank you, Guru.
Some yogis, they go there to the impersonal Brahman. Because he's thinking, I'm God. So he's thinking he's one, he's the supreme. So if he's become God, everyone else can become God. So he thinks everybody is God. You know, so it's just impersonal Brahman. You enter into the Brahma Jyoti. You get what is called Sayujya Mukti. Mukti means liberation, and Sayujya Mukti is impersonal liberation, or merging into the oneness of the Supreme. They want to lose their individuality. They want themselves to become God, to become the Supreme. So they enter into that Brahman, where there's no variety, where there's no activity, there's no relationship, There's only the oneness of the Brahman. So it becomes boring after a while. After a while, you're in that place, there's only the oneness, there's no friend, no activity, no relation, nothing, only the oneness. And so you stay in that, you don't stay there for long. After some time, you come back to the material world. And so you see like yogis like that, they come back to the material world, and then they will take up some welfare activities. They'll open a hospital, they'll make a museum, or they'll build a home for some children or something. They'll do some welfare activity. They don't actually know how to be occupied in spiritual activities. What is actually the business of the soul? What is the real need of the soul? They don't know. So it's important to understand what are spiritual activities. Spiritual activities means activities which are eternal, which go on continually. Not only in this life, after liberation also. After you enter the spiritual world, there's also activity. There's activities in the spiritual world. But some people, some jnanis and yogis, they're thinking that all activities are material, and they think the goal is to stop all activity. They don't know there are such things as spiritual activity. Spiritual activities begin with hearing and chanting about the Supreme Lord. So reading Bhagavad Gita, this is a spiritual activity. Is it clear? Any other questions? Any more? Any doubts?
I have a question, Guru Maharaj. So you just said that these kind of yogis, they do come to material world again. So the world like where oneness and all, these kind of world, do they really exist? Hare Krishna.
Yes. Is there really a oneness?
So yes, these kind of world, do they exist?
Yes. Beyond this material realm, beyond this material world, there's a spiritual world. You see, we are in the material energy, the material realm.
Yes.
And in this material world, there are many different planetary systems. You have the heavenly planets, and you also have hellish planets. We are in the earthly region, in the middle of the universe. But above at the top of the universe, you have the heavenly planets. And in the lower region of the universe, you have the hellish planets.
Okay.
But everywhere there's birth and death. But one who can get liberation, then they go beyond this world of birth and death, and they enter into what is called the spiritual realm, into the spiritual kingdom, in the spiritual world. And so within the spiritual world, there are different destinations. Just like in the material world, there's different levels of existence. Some are living in heaven, and some are living in hell, and some are in between. So in the spiritual world also, there are different levels of existence in the spiritual world. Some enter into the oneness, into that impersonal feature, which is called the Brahman. And they simply exist because they have a spirit. We have a spiritual body, but it's very minute, very small, and they may enter into the spiritual light, into that light, that Brahma Jyoti, which comes from the Lord Himself, that's emanating everywhere. And within that light of the Brahma Jyoti, there are many living entities. Just like we see living entities, you know, sometimes the light at night, there'll be many insects or flies around the light in the night.
Right.
And so let's say in the Brahma Jyoti, there's this light of the Brahman, which is spread everywhere. And within that light, there's also living entities, but they're in a very subtle form. We cannot perceive them. And we're simply, some living entities, they think of that oneness, that to be liberation. Now, in that condition, there's no suffering, but there's no real pleasure because there's no activity, there's no relationships. So, but there's no suffering, as we know suffering in the material world. The suffering, the miseries in this material world, they come on us due to the material body and material mind. But when you are liberated into the spiritual world, then there's no suffering. But in the Brahma Jyoti, there's no real enjoyment also, because there are no activities, there's no relationship. The pleasure comes in the relationships, in the activities. So we have to go through the Brahma Jyoti and you come to what is called the Vaikuntha planets. And in the Vaikuntha planets, Lord Vishnu is there in his different forms. And there are many planets there in the spiritual world. Many planets, many Vaikuntha planets. And above all the Vaikuntha planets, there's one planet which is called Goloka. And on that Goloka planet, Lord Krishna is there with his devotees. So Lord Vishnu is there with his devotees in the Vaikuntha planets, and Lord Krishna is in the Goloka planet with his devotees. And they're all having activities, they enjoy activities, they enjoy relationships with the Lord.
So if one goes to Goloka, they never come back?
That's right. That's said in the Bhagavad Gita. It said that those who enter that abode, they will never want to come back to this world, because this world is a place of birth and death and so much suffering. You know, we take birth and die, we come in some family and you develop relationships, and then the relationships are broken. You take birth some other place, different form of life. But in the spiritual world, there's eternal life. There's no birth and death.
Right.
Our real home is actually there in the spiritual world. Our real home is not here. We don't belong here. We're like people in the prison house. So people in the prison, you know, they're always thinking when they get free, when they will get free of the prison. So we're here in the prison house. We have our prison uniform in the form of the material body. But liberation is to get free, to get out of this prison house.
Okay. This explains a lot, Guru Maharaj.
Sorry?
This explains a lot.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Krishna is, we didn't read this. Did you read it all yet in the presence?
Yes, Guru Maharaj, we read the whole perfect.
Okay. So anyway, Krishna does not approve of this compassion. Arjuna was being compassionate. Arjuna was thinking he's being good. You know, he's always very compassionate. We'd think it's a good quality. But compassion based on the body is not really so good. Just like, you know, you give charity to someone, some people think, you know, I give charity, it's very good. But if you give charity to the wrong person, it's very bad. If you give charity to some drug addict and he goes and buys more drugs, it's certainly not good. Or you give charity to some drunkard who goes and buys more alcohol. And even you give charity to someone who goes and buys meat, it's not good. We want to be very careful where we give charity to. So compassion is like that. We want to be compassionate on people. We have to know where and how to be compassionate. We can become very affectionate to animals, and people become very affectionate to dogs and things, and they bring them in their home and take care of them, and they take them to the dog parlor and get their hair cut and make them look nice and everything. And we become very affectionate to these animals, but this is not really what human life is meant for. Human life is not meant for just worshiping dogs and taking care of dogs. We're meant to understand our existence, first of all, as a soul. Now, dogs are also souls. They are souls. So we don't neglect them. But that doesn't mean you completely devote yourself to them. And some people really do. They get very devoted to dogs. We want to become devoted to God, not to dog. When you become attached to animals, next life we may become an animal ourselves. That's very dangerous. And that is told like that in Srimad Bhagavatam. It tells how Bharat Maharaj had been a great king, and he had renounced everything, gone to Himalayas. And he was in Himalayas, he was away up in Himalayas where the Gandaki River flows, where the Shaligram Shilas are. And he was there, and he saved the life of a deer, a little deer. Mother died, and he saved the life of the little animal. But he became very attached to the little deer. And he stopped all this meditation, all his concentration on the Supreme. Instead, his concentration was on the deer. He was always thinking of this little animal. And what happened was he died. Next life, he became a deer. For some time, he had to be an animal. So we have to be very careful. It's our nature to be attached. We have to be careful what and who we become attached to. We should become attached to Vishnu or Krishna, the Supreme Bhagavan, the absolute truth. Become attached to and see everything in relation to him. That is proper use of attachment. And so compassion should be shown on people. Compassion means to elevate people from the bodily conception of life to the spiritual conception, to understand their spiritual nature. That is real compassion. To give people spiritual knowledge, not to leave them in ignorance, not to allow them to go on in ignorance in the illusion that I am the body, but to help people to get out of this illusion. Okay?
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
So, for example, just feeding poor people, that's all right. But if you feed people one day, tomorrow they're hungry again. So we feed people here in Mayapur, in the holy place. We also feed people, but we also teach them about how to chant the holy name of God. And we teach them about the laws of material nature and how it's our duty to surrender to Krishna. We teach them that the cause of the suffering due to our karma, due to our sinful reactions. We can get free of this karma by surrendering to Krishna. So we try to enlighten people. So people think they think Krishna was wrong to encourage Arjuna to fight. But Krishna was, he's God. He knows what needs to be done. So he was giving the right message to people. He was giving Arjuna the right instructions. Arjuna was in the bodily concept. If we think I am the body, then we'll never be happy. There will always be problems and fighting and quarreling going on. That's the bodily concept is the cause of all the problems in the world. One nation against another nation, one family against another. It's all thing, I am the body. The cause of all our lamentation is this body. We have to understand the body is only the dress. So Arjuna, as a Kshatriya, he should not give up fighting. He should fight. It's part of his duty. And he should do it in this particular case because Krishna wants him to do it. That is the ultimate reason why Arjuna fought. Because Krishna wanted him to do it. And our duty is to surrender to Krishna, to do it to please Krishna, to do what Krishna wants. Okay, any other questions?
Navya, do you have any questions? Hare Krishna. Tanmay Prabhu?
No, Mataji, I'm fine. Thank you very much for asking.
Do you want to read some more, or we want to do some japa, or what?
Yes, Guru Maharaj, we can do one round of japa with you.
Okay, yeah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Okay, so thank you very much. I hope to see you again.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Take care of you. See you next week.
Yes, have a good week. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Prabhus. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Bol.